just clarify, what is the situation? What's happening in Leicester? What is central government telling you to do?
Well, as you say, we've had a copy of a report sent to us overnight. It, despite all of our asking, does not explain why they feel that it is necessary to take some special action here in Leicester. And I'm not saying we shouldn't take special action. I'm just saying that I and the people of Leicester would need to be convinced that there was something unique about our city before we agreed to an extension of the lockdown. I've also, obviously, recognised that we do need to continue to take effective measures to warn people of the dangers of the continuation of the virus in our city, and we'll continue to do that and to work with government to do that. But if we are to have special treatment, we need the evidence to justify it.
Right, and as I understand it, this email asked you to keep in place the present restrictions beyond Saturday, beyond the 4th of July, for another 2 weeks. Are you saying you're not prepared to do that?
I'm saying we need to be convinced that there is a case for doing that. First of all, that there is something special about the spread of the virus in Leicester. We've had no evidence to convince us of that, and that if Leicester was to remain restricted for longer than the rest of England, that would actually make a difference to something. And they've made neither the case that there is something that needs to be done, and given any explanation as to why this is the right thing to do.
Well, the case, as I understand it, is that there has been a high incidence of people testing positive in Leicester, and particularly amongst younger age groups, and that therefore that is a cause of concern because they don't want it to spread.
Well, actually, the report that we've had from them readily acknowledges right at the outset that, in fact, the results are indeed higher in Leicester, but that's because they've been doing more testing in Leicester. And that perhaps is a fairly inevitable reflection of what's been happening. But having acknowledged that at the beginning of the report, they then go on to make some recommendations for actually continuation of the present restrictions in Leicester beyond the 4th of July that are not supported by any of the evidence that they've provided.
But as we've just got a quote from that document you received overnight, delaying the 4th of July 2020 relaxation actions in Leicester and enhancement of enforcement or monitoring of social distancing guidelines for at least 2 weeks. I mean, that is the straightforward request. And I mean, what you're going to do? You're going to go back to the government and sort of argue the toss with them?
Well, at the moment, that report is some recommendations from Public Health England, and I don't know whether the government has had a chance yet to decide whether or not to act on those recommendations.
Well, we did hear from Priti Patel yesterday, didn't we?
I'm up. Yeah, I know, but that was about a lockdown, which is quite a long way from an extension for 2 weeks of the present level of restriction, and that was a very dramatic claim that somehow something very dramatic was going to happen in Leicester. In fact, what we've got now is a comparatively modest proposal, but even with that modest proposal, it's something that will have a significant effect on the people of Leicester, while the rest of England is coming out of lockdown. We would somehow have to remain within it. Well, that's fine if it is necessary. If they can prove it's necessary, of course we'd go for it. But they have not provided the evidence that it is necessary or that it would make any difference.
Do you actually have the capacity, both in legal terms and also in terms of resources, to maintain a lockdown if that's what it comes to?
Well, as I say, this is a report from Public Health England, and it would really be for the government to explain, if we were to continue the lockdown in Leicester, how they would enforce it, which parts of the city they would enforce it in, and who would be responsible for making sure that it works. I hope that they will, first of all, provide us with the evidence for why it might be necessary, but then explain to us how on earth it could be made to happen.
So as things stand, the pubs in Leicester and those other public places, they will open on Saturday as far as you're concerned?
Well, certainly that is what is happening across England on Saturday the 4th of July, and they will, I expect, unless we get instructions to the contrary, be happening here as they ought to be, along with the rest of England. I mean, the fact is that the figures that we do have that are reliable, because for hospital admissions, the figures sadly for deaths in Leicester, show a decline in the impact of the virus in Leicester that is very, very similar to what is happening across the whole of England. And they certainly don't suggest that there are particular issues here that need to be dealt with in some dramatically different way.